Welcome to the Revisionists. I'm here with a special guest, Change Television, with his inventions. We're going to see what he's doing next. Zeev Neumeier, welcome to the Revisionists.
Thank you, Jason. Always a pleasure to be here.
Let's start off by being honest, Zeev. Are you really happy to be here?
Yes, because if I'm here with you, then I'm not answering some customers' questions.
So, Zeev, you haven't been sleeping, but we'll get back to that in a second. Let's start at the beginning, Zeev. I've known you now at least 10 years. Let's start with an easy question. Zeev, who are you? Where do you come from?
Hi, I'm Zeev. I come from... I did a bunch of stuff in my life. I once upon a time, I was a CTO of a design agency. I designed pretty websites back in the early days of the internet. I knew way too much about lipstick colors of the season, went to Fashion Week and did all that stuff.
Because of
launched fashion brands. Then one day I had an idea about how television needed better data. I went and I did that project on a whim, turned that into a startup that eventually became Inscape.
Let's slow down for a second. Zeev, look at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to cut this piece here. Okay, let me cue you up. So Zeev, you started in the web what year?
I don't remember, 98, something like that.
So 98, where are you living at this point? In Oakland?
No, New York.
Living in New York, building websites?
Building websites. I was 19-year-old out of college, building websites in the heydays of the .com boom.
For who? What kind of websites?
I did a bunch of stuff. Back then, I started out in banking of all things, insurance. That is New York, right? I did some publishing stuff. Then I went to work for some agencies and started doing a whole bunch of different things, right? Which is where I learned, about the agency world. Then I landed a job as a CTO of a design agency, where we got to do a lot of work for a lot of different businesses with design-centric type of web needs. Right? This was the early days of the internet, where you could really wow people if you were creative about it and you were very technically savvy about how to squeeze every last kilobyte of upload that you had. And so our focus was really trying to create the next generation of the web experience for that merchandising and marketing needs. Right? So we help, we help launch fashion brands. I knew way too much about lipstick and, got to go to Fashion Week and do all kinds of those things because we were building the web infrastructure behind a lot of those campaigns.
Right. Okay. So then how did you find yourself starting Inscape, getting into ACR? Like, what's the backstory here? Because ACR obviously has dramatically changed the way that TV is measured, the way ads are delivered, like really, really critical infrastructure. You're credited as at least one of the founders, if not the founder of ACR data. But how did you even get into that?
So it was 2008, I think. The world was crashing around us. And instead of worrying about how everything was crashing, I was worried about how television lacked data. We had a couple of customers who we did something with MTV and things like that. So I knew a little bit about television. And I've touched the television world earlier in my career, and I knew that the data was terrible, right? And I knew that these newfangled smart TVs were coming online, and without data, it didn't make any sense to me about what you would do with them, right? Like as a streaming machine, fine, but like there's so much more that television was still, was still a lean back experience. Like we wanted to make it active. We wanted to do stuff with it. So I sat around, and again, while the rest of Wall Street is busy crashing, I sat around and built this demo about ACR. And then I went around and tried to convince people that it was a great idea. And in the meantime, the agency that I was working on disintegrated into a pile of goop. I think that's the technical term. And so I came home one day and told my wife, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is the agency just laid off half the workforce, including me. The good news is I have this idea about television. And for some reason that I can't quite figure out, she didn't divorce me on the spot. But I took it, I turned it into this company. We took it, we ran with it. There was a couple of visionary people, notably at Visio, who like saw the potential early. And the rest is history.
Well, but hold on a second. You don't just you just breezed over like the breakthrough invention. Like you, how
Yeah, I
did
breezed over all the hard part. Yada yada yada.
you can even do this? Like for those who don't know, what is ACR and how did you do it?
So ACR was something that at the time was considered a little crazy. And today it's like common stuff. But the idea of ACR is like this: if your television lacks basic data about what it's watching, because the data doesn't come with metadata, the video that gets the television at the time didn't come with metadata. By the way, still today the metadata kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Then what you should do instead is you should put a device on the television that takes a picture of takes that video, turns it into a watermark, sends that watermark up to a huge server in the cloud, right? That has a huge lookup table. Look up what it is that video happens to be, and then you can say, aha, all of us, I know that the television is watching a 30-second spot. It happens to be a forward spot. This happens to be the part where the dog sticks his head out of the window, etc. Right? And now you have metadata about what's going on. You can take that metadata and you can store it, but you can also take that metadata and you can send it back to the television, so the television can do something like put up a little notice, right, that says, hey, I noticed you're watching the Ford commercial. Would you like to schedule a test drive? Things like that. In order to do that, you had to solve two technical problems. Number one, you had to do the fingerprint generation on the TV, which at the time was a technical challenge that most people said, nah, right? The second one is you had to solve the cloud component, right? You're talking about, lots of millions of devices in the field sending dozens of fingerprints per second, right? To servers. Yeah. Lots and lots of fingerprints per second to servers in the cloud for continual processing all the time. And again, 2026, not such a big deal. But back in 2008, this was a tall order. We had there was more than one person who was like, this is insanity. Like, you can't do this. Right? You
can't take pictures, a steady stream of pictures.
You can't deal with the steady stream of content. What was popular back then was these, about a halfway house where you had these devices. You had basically apps on the phone, and you'd point the phone at something, and you'd click on the microphone, and then it would take like a 30-second clip, would generate fingerprints out of that, and then send that off to detection. Because the cost profile on that is much lower, because you're doing it once in a blue moon. That the user's only going to click on it, I don't know, once an hour, right? Whereas over here, you're talking about a continual stream. But that continual stream is what provides the nice, clean data that really made this into a business.
Did you know it was going to work?
Not at all. In order to be a startup guy, you have to be delusional. Yeah. I just had this conversation with somebody this morning. None of this makes sense. What we're doing is crazy, right? Any normal person, any normal company should take one look and say, the risk profile here is unbelievable. You have these huge challenges. You have no idea how you're going to solve this. This is insanity. Why are you doing this, right? In order to be a startup guy, you have to, not just crazy. Crazy is not enough. You have to be delusional that you're going to crack the thing that doesn't make any sense for you to crack. Otherwise, you do not belong in a startup environment.
And so that was Cognitive, right? And then Cognitive got bought by Visio, and Visio commercialized Inscape, and now Inscape is really the what powers the entire measurement ecosystem. It is the de facto source of truth in the TV industry. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I mean, ACR technology won an Emmy for this purpose, so we did that. It solved the problem that it needed to solve. Right? It injected data into a business that needed data. It's funny how life works. You're asking me, like, did you know if this was going to work? The answer fundamentally is no. Not only did not know it was going to work, we also were completely off the mark about why it was important. And I think that this is another important, like, startup type of thing to understand. We do not know why the things that we are inventing are going to be important. Right? We know they're going to be important. We don't entirely know how. So as it turns out, ACR, we initially thought that ACR data was going to be super important to measure linear television. And it is. But where ACR data really flowered and where it is really used today is on streaming. Right? It's to take that streaming inventory and make it more valuable for a whole bunch of complicated reasons. But We had no idea that was going to be a thing. So it's like you need a confluence of technology and business and just behavior to come together to make an idea really tick, right? And in the case of cognitive, for example, this is going to come back when we talk about Gray Swan, which is the thing I'm doing now. But in the case of cognitive, cloud becoming a thing, which meant that we could actually solve the scale problem. We had a path to solve the scale problem. It wasn't easy, but it was possible, right? Streaming was coming online, which meant that there was a looming problem that was coming up that needed this solution, right? And people's behavior about buying smart televisions. Those three things, those confluence of things had to come together in order to make this a big idea. And we predicted maybe 1.5 of those things charitably, right?
Right.
So, it's funny how life works sometimes.
Yeah, you're lucky. Well, it's still obviously very important. And by the way, you should have an Emmy behind you. Like, where's your Emmy? You should have it up.
My Emmy is downstairs right behind the most important trophy in my house, which is my son's MVP basketball player at the local Blue Talus.
Nice. That's
if you saw my son, you would know why that is my most proudest achievement.
He's not that tall?
He's not that tall, no.
Okay. So take me now. So, and by the way, like, in that build up about ACR, like, what I love about you is you tell it like it is, and you love attacking problems, right? Like, okay, so why did you start something else? Like, you knew how difficult it was to do the first startup. What is Gray Swan? What are you doing now? And
remember
why?
the problem about crazy? So my wife claims that I'm a masochist.
Okay.
The truth is, like, I've unfortunately taken away my God-given American right to bitch and moan about it because I know what I knew what I'm getting myself into. Like, she doesn't in the first one, she put up with my bitching and moaning. Now she's like, listen, buddy, you did this one to yourself, right? I told you can do it. You did this one to yourself. Once you're addicted to this life, you're addicted to this life. Like, somebody asked me actually yesterday, like, he was like, should I leave my job? Should I not leave my job? I'm like, you should do whatever makes you happy, because I don't know what makes me happy. What makes you happy? And I'm like, you know what? Being up at 1:00 in the morning, fixing this damn thing actually makes me happy. So, I mean, there is definitely a component of, I love solving problems. And more importantly, I love solving problems that are hard.
So what is it? So, okay, what is Gray Swan?
Okay, what is Gray Swan? Gray Swan is a swan that's not black nor white.
Thank you.
Gray Swan is a startup in the agentic ad tech space, right? So, I mean,
don't say agentic ad tech. What is it? What is it? Never mind this. Let's start all over again. Why did you start Gray Swan and not the masochistic self-inflicting harm version? But, like, what problem were you looking to solve? What inspired you to want to do this? And what problems to solve? Yeah.
So I started Gray Swan because, coming out of Inscape, we knew we could now collect a bunch of data, right? And a lot of people were doing good stuff with that data, and that was good. But I looked at it and said, there is so much more that we can do with that data. Right? And going back to the idea of the confluence that we spoke about before, whereas in cognitive networks, the rise of cloud was making all this stuff possible, and the change in behavior was making the need. Over here, the rise of AI made doing things with data a lot more possible. And at the same time, the behavior change of streaming becoming the main event, as opposed to just an also ran for television, brought forward the need that companies were now drowning in data, and they weren't really using it, didn't really have a way of dealing with it. A lot of folks were just running their business blind. And what really cemented it for me, and the problem that we were going to solve, right, was a lot of the folks that I hired in Visio, a lot of the folks that are all over the industry, woke up every morning, walked in, looked at the dashboard, promptly panicked because something somewhere went whatever, and said, we spend the next 3 hours going and trying to figure out what went bunk yesterday. Just to discover, by the way, after about wasting way too much time on this, that nothing went bunk. A new campaign launched, or somebody turned on a new tag that they didn't tell anybody about, or whatever. And then 1 out of 10 times something really did go bunk, and then they didn't see it because they lost the signal in the noise, right? And that really made me think, like, the more data that we have, and as streaming gets bigger, right, as your revenue stops being from linear and starts really being from CTV, that data grows exponentially. If you don't have your arms around it, you can't really run a business. You can't fly a plane if you have no idea what's flying. And kind of like the slide that we start with a lot of people is like, you are not in the media space. You are in the airline business. You have perishable, lumpy inventory in the shape of ad pods, and you have perishable, lumpy demand. And your success or failure is not dependent about whether you have the most amazing, greatest piece of content or whatever. It's not even about whether you have the best audience. It's about your ability to pack perishable, lumpy demand into perishable, lumpy supply and get those people from one side of the country to the other with the minimum amount of alcohol and cursing, right? You are just like an airline. And towards that end, you need to have control over your data. Just like airlines know exactly if there's weather in Atlanta, they need to hold the plane back in Dallas. You need to have that, and you don't. So we took that data, we ingested it, we created an AI context that understands your data, and this is the hard part, right? It's not just enough to throw it at AI and say, go have fun with it. You need to create the models that understand the CTV business, understand your data, understand why the CTV business is different than the power generation or the flower business or the lipstick business, right? And be able to A, get a context for it, B, tell you when stuff happened and why it happened, and C, now that you have done those two things, which are hard, you can now answer any random ass question that you have about your business. And if you can answer any random ass question you have about your business, you can now task a computer to do stuff for you, right? But you can't shortcut this. You got to build it from the ground up. You got to start with, you have to have the data. You got to build the models and understand the data, get the context, which then allows you to figure out what's normal and what's not. By the way, hence the name of the company, right? You're not looking for black swans. You're not looking for white swans. The gray swans are the stuff that makes a difference in your business on a day in and day out. And that's exactly what the model is trying to understand your business by, right? Trying to find the important stuff through the noise. And then you can start doing arbitrarily complex things. You want to see it?
Okay. Yes. I was going to say, can we do a demo? And let's do a demo. Let me play this back for you. Or in a sentence or two. And I won't interrupt when you say agentic this time. In a sentence, what is Gray Swan?
Gray Swan is an agentic AI platform that takes in your data, fundamentally understands it, and allows you to A, ask it any arbitrary questions about your business, and B, task it to do things for your business.
In the context of streaming, and
in the context of ad tech data.
Ad tech, okay. So I think a lot. It's always, so much. The reason why I interrupted you on AI and agentic, everyone's saying they got agentic.
Yeah, I know. I hate that term, by the way. I absolutely
show me, Zeev. Can you pull it up? Let's see Gray Swan.
Let's see Gray Swan. So I'm going to share my screen.
So walk through. Yes, because anybody who's watching this, they're watching because they're like, what's Zeev going to say? But they're also, what's Zeev doing these days, right? So we're looking here at Gray Swan.
You're looking at our most popular product. This is the front end to our product, right? Okay. The product is data. You're looking at the front end. It's called Wingman. Everything in this company has to be a joke about some waterfowl. Be swan related, right? And Wingman is a GUI that lets you interact with the model, right, and ask it, in this case, random questions. That's what we're going to demo today.
Wait. What's a GUI?
A graphical user interface.
Thank you.
Remember, I came from design. This is what I used to build for a living.
I know, but I don't know what GUI.
Really? You're like by the way, you're like the third person to ask me what a GUI is in the past.
Well,
So clearly, I'm the one. I'm the dinosaur here.
It's all the context.
It's all the context.
So before we get much further, okay. So we're looking at your GUI. We're looking at Wingman, which is an interface that I get. Who's using this?
So there's a couple of MOs of using this. You're looking at a demo account, so clearly I'm using it to demo to
Am I
people.
an ad ops person?
Right. So you are either an ad ops person that
Okay.
is waking up in the morning and just want to make sure that nothing died today, right?
Okay.
If something died today and you need to go pick up the phones and yell at someone, you would like to know that right now, get it over with, and not spend 3 hours trying to figure out what went wrong.
Okay.
Right.
And
So
I'm a publisher.
right.
So
So you could be a publisher. Or you could be, by the way, a market maker, right? You could be in the middle. You could be arbitraging inventory, and you still want to know whether one of your supply sources died.
How are things getting delivered?
Correct. And by the way, again, this is model data. This is basically synthetic data, but it's these kinds of drops are not unusual, right? Somebody died here.
Yeah. Explain the lines. What are we looking at?
So you're looking at here, transactions, basically impressions, right, and CPM and revenue. We can pull in whatever data it is that you bring to bear. Some people, for example, have, but it's the basic data that makes your ad operations tick, right? What are my bids? What are my requests? What's my fill rate? What is my impressions? What's the CPM? How much revenue did I make, etc. So far, so good?
So far, so good. But then what value do you add into the process? Because they have this already, right?
They have that part already. Yeah, this is just table stakes, right? Okay. So what I'm saying, for example, is I say, like, look, I come in and I ask him to focus on just this time period, just the last day or so. And I say, show me the winners and losers, period. Right? Hey, today, just show me what's going on. Tell me who's kicking ass and taking names today, and tell me who is, quitting up on life and going home. Right? And voila, you have an analysis. It comes back real quick, right? And it tells you, look, these apps are doing well. These apps are doing poorly. These guys are up. These guys are down. Pay attention over here. There's a supply source thing. There's a demand source thing. It packaged up for me ends the question of, do I need to go push the panic button on something like that? Right.
So Gray Swan is scanning all the different dimensions of CTV universe. Basically, it's not just a
Gray Swan is scanning all the different dimensions of your data, putting them into context, right? And then telling you, look, I know your business, right? The AI understood your business. And within that context, I can then tell you what you should go. Human being, you need to pick up the phone and call out that supply source because they're down.
So got it. Okay, great. And so that is difficult. Otherwise, it's not just that you built a layer of an agentic layer that's quickly scanning and summarizing the activity on the platform. It's also identifying these things like these big drops, right? Like, what are these?
It's identifying. Yeah, it's first kind of layer. We haven't even gotten to the fun part yet, but its first layer is understanding how your system ticks, what's normal, what's not normal, what you should go push the button. And remember, we're talking now from the perspective of the ad ops guy, right? So from the perspective of the ad ops guy, the agentic part that he needs, what he needs we need to task the machine to do for him is, hey, do my job for me. Instead of me sitting there staring at dashboards, right? I want you to stare at the dashboards and just tell me what it is that I need to worry about. That's step number one.
Got it.
Okay.
So this, in some ways, this combines dashboards and gives you a meta view over your whole ad operations.
Correct. What we say is you should definitely not get rid of your dashboards. You should definitely keep your dashboards, right? But you shouldn't be staring at them. You should keep your dashboards for only when you actually need them, right? You should task an agent to stare at your dashboards for you, right? And then give your dashboards a voice, so to say.
Yeah. And so yep. So I'm an advertiser.
So now let's say you work. Now let's say you're not in ad ops. You're in revenue, right? Yep. Let's say you're a publisher, and your job is to monetize your stuff. Or let's say you are in an agency and you have a bunch of advertisers that you are responsible for, and maybe the thing that you really want to know is and let's say forget, for example, for a second, the operations guy. The operations guy cares a lot, like whether my campaigns are running, how they're doing, how they're tracking. Do I need to lower the floor bid? Do I need to raise the floor bid? All of that falls into that first category that we just spoke about. I understand the business. I understand what normal is. I understand if a floor price needs to be raised. You can task an agent to go do that. It will tell you if you need to do something. It will either ping you to do it, or it will just do it for you on command when you ask it. And you can ask it any random ass question to get to the root cause of what's going, or to just figure out what the hell is going on. So far, so good. That's the operation side. Now let's talk about the revenue side.
Yeah.
Right. You don't care about that. You want to make more money.
Right.
Right. So, for example, one of the most popular questions we get is, what advertisers are active on indirect that are missing from direct? Okay. Hey, who's buying programmatically on my system that I don't have salespeople calling yet? Can you answer that question? Right. If
Who's
again, I deal that,
where's there an opportunity to speak directly to a brand rather than taking?
Yeah. Who's buying my inventory? Right. Who's buying my inventory programmatically that my salespeople aren't calling?
Right.
Right. That is a question that would generally require somebody to have the imagination to ask, and then somebody to go and build a dashboard or to go get a data scientist, whatever. Right. The idea is you need what makes this agentic is not that you took the human out of the loop. You don't want to take the human out of the loop, and the humans don't want to be out of the loop.
No,
right?
we need jobs.
What you want is to take the dredge work out of the loop.
Yeah.
Right. You want the AI. You want to be able to task the AI with stuff that you would previously have had to task a human being with.
Right.
Hey, go get me new prospects.
Right.
That's a task you would have tasked a human being with. Now you can task an AI with it. It will go, it will do its thing, and it will come and tell you, this is who you call. Here's the phone number.
Right. And then you can
I don't have the phone number yet, but here's who you call. You call this brand.
People hours into less research, more action.
Right. Less research, more action. Exactly. What makes this agentic is not that it acts for you. What makes this agentic is that it makes things actionable for you.
Right. So yeah, totally. So when you started, you were doing anomaly detection, right?
Correct.
And so you've really evolved the product. Now it's actually understanding the entire ad ecosystem, can distinguish between direct and indirect advertising if it's coming programmatically or if it's already sold. It can automatically have a view into your entire inventory of the brands, and then the performance of those. Is that correct?
Correct. And
what are performance markers then? It's not outcomes, right? It would be attention, delivery.
So, here's the interesting bit. The model itself understands and this is what makes AI different than a lot of our technologies. The model understands the CTV industry at large. It knows what an advertiser is. It knows what a campaign is. It knows what an impression is. It knows what a fill rate is. What it doesn't know specifically, and what we make a point, by the way, of not telling it, is your specific business, right? We let the data that you have to bring to the table teach it what is important and not important about business. Forgive me for a second. What is important and not important about your business, right? And so to the extent that you have outcome data, you put it in, and the model will figure out what it means because the model knows that advertisers have outcome data, right? Wow. You may or may not have that to bring to the table, and the model will tell you. If you, for example, we have some customers who don't have bids data. They just don't. Or they don't have fill rate data. They don't. They have their own impressions. They don't know what, they don't know what to divide it by. And so the model says, like, look, I understand you don't have this, right? It's smart enough to recognize what you have and what you don't have, and what the limits of its prediction. If you ask it a question that it doesn't have an answer for, he will say, I am sorry, I can't give you a reasonable answer for this because you don't have the data to bring to the table about it yet. Right. Which is kind of really important because a big chunk of the danger of a lot of these things is, they'll give you an answer, right? It'll be complete hallucination. They'll give you an answer, right? It's this kind of really one that understands the business.
Right. It knows what it doesn't know.
It knows what it doesn't know. And that's, by the way, why we started with anomalies. Because to crack the anomalies problem, we first had to build that foundation where it understood the business. You can't figure out anomalies until you know what normal is. Wow. You can't know what normal is until you understand the business.
Yeah.
But once you have gotten that foundation, you now have a model that is really good at being able to take almost any task that you give it.
Amazing. And how differentiated is this? It's like I've not seen anything like this yet. And there's a lot of hype around AI and Agentic, and everyone's
There
saying
is,
do it. But
yeah, there is a lot of hype around AI and Agentic. The answer is, and it's there. This is a high hype area. It just is, right? That everybody and their grandmother is gonna is putting chatbots on top of their data,
right.
and you know what? They should 100% do that. Okay,
Yeah.
like every dashboarding company in the universe has put a chat agent on. Everybody's put a chat agent for the customer support, and like they should do that. I'm not besmirching them, right? But that's not agentic, right? In order for something to be agentic, you need to be able to it needs to be a virtual coworker, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to task it with things that you would give the human being, and then have it do it and have it do a good enough job of it so that you wouldn't have to have the human being saying, nah, forget it, I did it myself, right? So for a lot of these things, if you just take an LLM and chuck it on top of your data, you're going to get a pretty decent search engine. And that's, again, that's fine. You take an LLM and you chuck it on top of a dashboard, you're going to get a dashboard that you can talk to, and that's fine. But if you want to be able to answer business questions, that's the niche we're in.
Got it.
Make sense?
Yes.
You want to see something cool?
Yes.
All right. So let's say, for argument's sake, let's go back to and say, compare evil sci-fi advertisers with transportation advertisers, but only
It
on...
made up categories. There's not an evil sci-fi industry officially.
Yes. So here's the idea, right? There isn't a categorization of advertisers into evil sci-fi corporations.
It could be,
right?
But
But there isn't, right? And by the way, you went back to ask what problem are you trying to solve, right? Remember, a big chunk of why the data chaos happens to begin with, right, is because all of this data is not structured. A lot of this data is coming in these unstructured tags with underscores and hyphens and whatever, and like random ass words that people came up in a fever dream, right? And so a big chunk of the context that the AI gets is taking all those tags and then breaking them up into tokens, and then having an understanding of what it is and saying, this is an advertiser. It doesn't say it's an advertiser. I know that it's an advertiser from context, and I know that it's Nissan, and I know that Nissan is an automotive company, right? And so, for example, it knows that
co-activating
the reality cost and savings, whatever it is, right, is no, here we go. That it knows that Sirius Cybernetics Corporation is an evil sci-fi corporation and also an advertiser, because none of the, that's the part of the context that it has, and by comparison to Coley Motors or Total Bastard Airlines. Make sense?
Make up all these brands.
And we had this question earlier today. It was like, somebody was like, can you compare my whatever one category of advertising to another category that they really care was gaming and automotive or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And like there was like, you could do it. Yeah, you could do that, right? You could do that, right? And it requires the context in order to do that.
That's fantastic. So what do your customers use it for most? Like, what are they most excited? What's the thing that makes them say, I'm in? So the number one thing that they want, they say, I need Gray Swan for this. What is it?
So mostly it falls into two categories. Again, it falls into the categories of people who need to operate stuff, right? And just think of it as a force multiplier. Think of it as an extra virtual coworker, especially now when a lot of the television industry is suffering through shrinkage, right? There is less people to go around, and you need those people who are left need to just make more of what they got, which means that you can't spend your time chasing stuff, right? But you're still responsible to be on top of things, and you can just think of this as a virtual coworker. You can task it with things that would have taken you like 6 hours in the past, and now it's done in 30 seconds, and you're done, right? Or you can give it to your boss, and then you don't have to send reports to your boss every time that they wake up and then ask you for something, right? So on the operation side, my personal favorite quote was, "You made an AI version of my boss," right? The guy who asked me calls, because the story was like, there was a guy who was he used to call his coworker in every day, He says, what happened yesterday? Why is there a spike in the dashboard? And the guy says, I don't know. Every day you call me in here and ask me why there's a spike in the dashboard. It takes me 4 hours. You know, it takes me 4 hours to go figure that shit out, right? So, you've made an AI version of that and you've saved me X amount of time that I can now dedicate to operating my business better, right? And again, the trick is, this is like an airline. It's perishable, lumpy supply and perishable, lumpy demand. If you're asleep on the switch for an hour, that's an hour you are never getting back. That is revenue you left on the table. So this isn't just like, oh, I made your life easier. This is, I made you able to fly the plane, right? As opposed to, supposed to be busy with the stewardess in the back arguing with the passenger and not flying the plane. We need you flying the plane, right? So that's category number one. And again, they get excited about, they can do more with less and they can focus on flying that plane because that plane is hard to fly right now.
Right. So category one is yield optimization.
Yield operations, ad ops guys, on the publisher side, ops guys, the folks who are the folks who in the end of the day, if they're asleep at the switch, you lost revenue.
Right.
On the other side of that, right, is the sales organization, right? The guys who are interested in making more money.
Right.
How do I make more with what I have?
Right. So it's like,
what's my fill rate and is it good? Okay, so the operation guy is responsible to make sure stuff doesn't fall down. Okay, shkoyach. Let's say, for argument's sake, you have a channel and your fill rate is 30%. By the way, just coming to the conclusion of what your fill rate is not a simple question.
Right.
That if you ask somebody what their fill rate is, they'll give you 16 answers. None of them are right.
Let's say
fill rate is not. That's a surprisingly hard thing to do.
The answer is just, it depends, isn't it?
It depends. It depends on what's your hypothetical fill rate. What's your fill rate given this particular audience? Right. You might have some great impressions, some great viewing, but your damn audience is so concentrated in a couple of different, in a couple of relatively small niche categories that what happens is you simply max out on that profile. And there's only 3 advertisers on the face of the planet who want these guys. Right? And so your fill rate, you're sitting, you're scratching your head, like, how come my fill rate is like, whatever, 10%? I can't figure out why. And I got all this supply. And the answer is because you got all the supply concentrated, right? And good luck finding that with traditional methods. Right? So if you're sitting around, you're like, how do I increase my revenue? How do I get this to go up? Right? Then you need to be able to, again, task the machine with doing things that you would otherwise have to go task a human being to go spend a month to do. Tell me how to improve the fill rate on channel X.
So
and it will go and do that for you.
Let me ask you this though: if it's doing that, do you have alerts?
So we do. We do a couple of things. Number one, we have alerts. You can just ask for alerts when stuff happens. Right. That is actually not a popular feature, and I think for good reasons. Feature number 2 is you basically have daily digests. Right. Every morning you got an email. This is how it is. You pay attention. That is a surprisingly popular feature. For good reason. Right? Because let's be honest, not everything is a fire drill and you need to go lift it, but it's good to it's your morning paper. Okay. But number 3, which we are launching right now, and I'm actually very proud of, these agents that you task to go look out for stuff for you, and then you let them do their thing, and they hit you up on Slack when they want to talk to you.
What stuff?
So, for example, you say like, "Look, I am looking for opportunities on optimization opportunities on supply partner blah 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 blah, and at these conditions blah 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 blah." Hey, agent, go figure this out. When such an opportunity comes, hit me up. And that agent will go say, okay, I got this. So how about this? How about this? We'll have a conversation with you, right? It will set that piece up. It will go off and do that. And you'll forget it exists for 3 weeks. And then 3 weeks later, it comes back and it says, hey, you remember that thing? It's happening. Would you like to do something about it? Right? So the idea of being, maybe you take an agent and you say like, listen, I want to, I'm watching automotive. I know a big campaign is coming up. I don't know exactly when. I don't know exactly where. Go find me. I know something big is happening in forget actually, political. Political is a really good one because, they all come together, right? Go look at political. Tell me when stuff is happening on political. Right? That
Wow.
kind of stuff. So again, you're instead
Right.
of
So
you
all
waking
this-
up every morning and going for your little checklist, right? You're tasking the machine to go do this for you.
so you could say if you're a publisher, your TV network, or an operating system, let's say, you could say track the automotive industry and tell me when it goes below 8% and above 15.
So you
And
could, but actually a better way of saying is track the automotive industry
yeah.
and tell me when is a good time to buy.
Ah,
Because the whole point of this
right.
thing knows your business. It may even know your business better than you do.
Right.
Don't tell anyone I said that.
Yeah.
You don't want to set a threshold.
Right.
It's actually surprisingly, it's okay at thresholds. It's not great at thresholds because AIs don't do well with thresholds, right?
Yeah.
But they do very well with patterns. So if you just say, tell me when a good opportunity to sell to political is, it knows your business, it knows the context. It will go find you that good opportunity to sell to
Wow.
political.
And
Right.
is it on platform? Is it off platform? Can it go into the bid stream and understand trends outside, or is it contained to your ecosystem?
It's all about what data you have to bring to the table.
Okay.
Right. So you have that data, we
Right.
will put that data in. You don't have that data, well, right. You don't want other people using your data. They don't want you using their data.
Right.
Whatever data you have to bring to the party, that's the data you get to use.
Yeah, got it. Cool.
Make
Zeev,
sense?
yes, this is great. Anything else on Gray Swan we didn't talk about?
Not enough.
There's a lot there.
There is. I mean, look, this thing is a mile wide and a mile deep, but I think for an intro, that's more than enough to.
That was I don't want to say. We said it didn't fly the coop. I was looking for a bird analogy.
Very good. Yeah.
Nice.
You have you are required to make waterfowl puns in order
Yeah.
to join this company.
I told you. I think when you find a fowl, you should have the swan fly over and drop a turd on the fowl. So when you open up your thing, you can find the fowl. Oh, look.
Oh, that was You wanted swans, and you were really big into swans and turds. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it laid an egg. Yeah, just like Zev, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it. I hope other people will watch this and learn from it. I'll be certain to show this to you and to your audience when they get a chance in the next couple of weeks. And lastly, upcoming news. You just did an integration.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we have just announced a partnership with Operative. So one of the things that we do is we create capabilities, right? Some of our customers just buy our products outright and use that GUI, that graphical user interface that you just saw to interact with the interactive product. If they don't have their own internal systems or they don't have their own internal data warehouses or lakes, Swan lakes, get it? Then we could just get them up and running and they're off with a permission slip. They don't have to do anything. A lot of our other customers have existing systems and they just need integrations to enable capabilities. And so everything that's supported by a product is also supported by APIs, and we just sell APIs in a Chinese menu style. And some of our good customers have a strategic partnership with us where we power a lot of their AI capabilities. And we just announced a strategic partnership like that with Operative, where we're going to power a lot of really cool AI capabilities for their customers in their platform.
They have
to bring to the table.
So Gray Swan is not just an interface that people have to log into. It's an infrastructure that plugs into other people's.
Correct. In that context, we like to think of ourselves as the Home Depot of AI components. And I know that's not waterfowl themed, but it's not. It's not. But like for a lot of systems nowadays, you need to have these capabilities. A lot of them are becoming table stakes, like you have to have them. And it does not make sense for everybody in our industry to go build a model to understand what an advertiser is, to understand like all of that stuff. That's duplication galore, right? Buy that capability from Gray Swan, buy that component from Gray Swan. It again, whatever data you have to bring to the table, those models crunch that thing, and that output you can then pop directly, either directly interface back with your customer or use that as feedstock for a lot of the other secret sauce stuff that you do. So for example, one of the key parts underneath the covers to make all this stuff tick is something we call forecasting, our forecast module, which says, looking at all the stuff that I've seen in the past, I can forecast any combination of dimensions going forward. So, for example, to answer the example I gave before, tell me when something interesting is happening on political. It has to first know what political is, but then it also has to then be able to say, look, knowing the behavior of political, I can forecast that tomorrow the load on political is going to be X, right? And therefore, it'd be a good time to buy or not a good time to buy. In order to do that, you have to be able to say, not only I know what political is, but be able to create a forecast, right? So for a lot of folks, they can take those load factor forecasts and then go pop those into their various systems without having to go recreate a forecasting engine, because that's a pain in the ass. Why would you need to, right?
Yeah. It's a terrible way to end, Zev. So let me just go back to Home Depot analogy. If I ever get a chance to work with Home Depot, they should change their slogan to "Welcome to Home Depot. Thanks for shopping at Home Depot. See you in an hour."
Yes.
I've never been to Home Depot once. We always go, and I was like, "Oh, I'll be back." And if the one time I went once, I was like, I felt like a champion. And the next morning, my wife goes, "You forgot." I was like,
"You forgot this and this and this." By the way, I've never been. This is why Home Depot is such a brilliant business. I've never been to Home Depot and spent less than $100.
Oh yeah,
I can go in looking for one package of screws, and I will walk out of there with $100 worth of stuff, and I don't even know why.
Yeah, it's like Costco. I got a bucket of hummus and a leaf blower, and I'm like, I went in for razors. Zeev Neumeier, always a pleasure. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. That was a distinct pleasure.